bit darker.
Okay.
Anyway, I wanted to set this lecture up to be kind of like my career, basically, that I've gone through. And I'm still pretty young at this. I've been represented by a New York gallery for the last 14 years now, almost 15. I luckily got in when I was 22, and there's a long story about that. I took advantage of some really good luck that just happened to fall upon me. And so I have some of my works that I did as soon as I got out of school, went to get me into the gallery, and then I evolved a lot while I was in the gallery. And I brought all that stuff in there. Also different moments I've had in my life that I've kind of pushed forward through, I guess, like life training and life painting and what made me want to do that. So I put a lot of bad artwork in here also, so you guys can see the stuff that I've evolved from and where I am now and how my tastes have actually changed and what I chose to paint at the time. So I love this quote by Faulkner, and this is really, I want my paintings to be very much about life. So I'm very interested in people as a painter and trying to represent them as honestly and as authentically as possible. And again, trying to capture the life that is in the paintings. So this really speaks to me, is just having the artist arrest motion, which is life, and basically bring it back out that it can be timeless in a lot of respects. Where people will see a painting of mine maybe 30 years from now, 40 years from now, and that person's still living in the painting. And romantically thinking about oil paint never really dries. It's just a molecule slow down, you know, so these Rembrandt paintings are actually still moving. So I find a lot of philosophical and crazy romantic notions with painting, you know, being a painter and immersed in it. So I'll show you guys some of my kind of slightly recent work, and then I'm going to move into the stuff that I did, I guess, in my art growing up and everything. I'm getting texts on here. Sweet. Sorry about that. So this is a portrait of my mom. And I do a lot of subjects that are close to me, personal subjects, people that have affected me in my life, obviously. And all the portraits are life-size. So it's weird to see her so big. And I live in Brooklyn, and I used to be a graphic designer for a time, and that kind of filtered into the backgrounds, into my paintings, along with seeing broken typography in the streets and city. Like you find almost like ready-made paintings all over New York City, where bills were torn down, and there's different strata that you can see based on what people have put down, their different layers. It's almost like an archaeological dig in a lot of respects, where someone will put graffiti over something, and then someone will put a poster over top of it, and then that'll get torn in a certain way. The abstraction is so beautiful. So here's an earlier piece. It's so big. This is a detail piece I actually recently just had at a show at Art Miami Basel this past December. And it's actually a really old piece that I did maybe in 2008 or 2009 that never sold. So sometimes paintings stick around. This is a shot to give you like an idea of the scale of a piece. So all the pieces are life-size. The background is very much based on a Rauschenberg painting. I'd just seen his Combine show at the Met. And so I kind of combined a lot of the letter forms that he had used in pieces. This is a piece of Aurora, who's a really close friend of mine.
These are all paintings?
Yeah, these are all oil on panel.
They were photographs.
They are photographs of my paintings.
Slides.
Well, it's interesting and you guys feel free to ask me questions at all during this, because I want to get the conversation going. It needs to be pretty much like an open discussion, you know. So everything's really chill. I don't have a set plan for this whole
And
thing.
when were these done? How long ago?
Oh, she was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And the idea, it's interesting, if you paint someone as realistically as possible and you take a photograph of them, and 99% of the people actually only see my work online. You know, nobody really goes into the gallery so much to see it in real life, so they tend to kind of look photorealistic. In fact, a journalist just called me the other day who was writing an article on hyperrealism, and she's like, well, how do you make your paintings look so photographic? And I was like, that's kind of an insult to someone who wants to make it look like life, you know, and be lifelike. Because a photograph tends to, I had to explain to her how a photorealist is trying to make the painting look like a physical photograph, where it's flat in areas, it's all, the surface is all uniform. my paintings have a lot of build-up in texture, and I want a lot of history to the backgrounds. You know, where I'll work on the backgrounds longer than the figures in a lot of paintings, because abstraction, I love abstraction in design, and the idea that these pieces are open-ended in the backgrounds, where I could put like a letter form that might not work. You know, I could take that away and it might be good. You know, like sometimes just one step of design is a little too much. You want to get a nice balance. Whereas a figure, I know if a hand looks correct and I know if an ear looks correct. So I want to really push the idea of balancing the two within a piece, but the backgrounds take me just as long, if not longer, because I want them to have that age look and that history look. I want the pieces to have a lot of weight to them as well as texture. So you'll notice that hopefully that'll be, we'll be seen. And actually the early stuff I did, I was really interested in the city. So it's kind of figured out, you know, it's kind of moved itself into a way that's more micro as opposed to how it was more macro earlier. I'll show you guys.
Do you do acrylic underpaintings?
No.
No?
No, I do, it's all just straight oils. Yeah. This is a charcoal drawing of my friend Henry that I did. Again, really interested in character studies. I want to really create who this person is, and I want the viewer to be interactive with the figure as opposed to me. I don't want to do any fancy brushstrokes or anything that kind of shows my ego involved at all. I want it to be the relationship between the viewer and the model to be without me in the middle. So there's three parts. So you have me doing the painting, then you have the model and the viewer. I don't want to be in there. I want to kind of get out of that space so that I can have the viewer have a more immersive interaction with the sitter. So they kind of think about what they're. Here's a close-up. This is the Baron. I rented a chateau from him in 2010 in Belgium, and this was a painting basically about, he wanted, a bunch of artists like invaded his like chateau or whatever to paint. I set up a workshop there where I did a painting from the start of the painting until the finish. And so I actually had a full month to work on it, and I had 12 students from all over the world. We had a guy, like a film director from LA come out. We had an animal neurosurgeon from Oregon. We had a woman who was from Wasilla, Alaska. But this was, he had asked like every artist that came in from the class if they could draw his wife, who had just recently passed away. Like, well, not recently, I think it was like 2 or 3 years. And there had been a fire where he had lost all the photographs of her, except for like 2 really small like pictures that he had. And so we had some of the artists actually in the class do some studies and give them as like gifts and stuff. But this was him thinking about that is what I wanted to portray in the painting. And I'd just been in Amsterdam because I'd go there on the weekends from Belgium and see all these Rembrandt paintings I was really inspired by. So that's the Baron. This is a portrait of my father. So again, I paint a lot of personal subjects, and I really want to build up the surface of the painting so that it has that texture that turns the form around. Again, being really interested in Rembrandt. This is a charcoal study, my friend Aubrey. And within drawing, I have a hard time with drawing sometimes because I really want texture in a surface. But then with drawing, to get a texture within paper is really hard. You know, you can't really build it up so much, mixed media, I guess. But this was my way of adding the kind of drips and textures that I find in the city into the drawing process. I don't know how successful it was.
Very nice.
Thanks. Here's a progression. So basically I just threw a whole bunch of stuff at the paper first, like coffee and everything, and then I started shaping it out and developing it. Yeah, I stretched it and then started building out. Okay, so we're gonna get to what inspired me to be an artist, right? So I love 80s movies. I'm a kid of the 80s. There's a movie called Some Kind of Wonderful. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It's about the guy that liked the girl, and he did a painting of her, and blah, 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 trying to impress her. Goes on a date with her, there's a fight, such and such. The nerd wins, which is awesome. Anyway, so this was a painting that I saw like when I was a kid, and I didn't realize how much this looks like my artwork now, which is kind of crazy, right? That this was something that really inspired me early on. It's funny, I actually got to meet Leah Thompson, who was the actual actress, and I didn't even know really who she was. My friend, so in Belgium, I was there. This is going to be like a long, really weird story. It's just tonight. the guy in Belgium that was a film director, he films a TV show right now, and I got to go visit him last year on set. And she's one of the actresses on the show. And I was sitting at lunch with them in one of the trailers and stuff, and I was like, oh, what have you been in before? And then like everyone kind of laughed. They're like, yeah, she was in Back to the Future, and she was in like all my favorite movies. And I didn't realize it until after she had left. But I've been talking to her on email now, and she's actually going to pose for a painting of mine in the same kind of format, which is going to be cool. And she actually said that the artist did 2 paintings for the movie, and she was given one of the first one that got rejected, that they were going to use, which I'm dying to see because I'm nerdy like that.
Who's the artist, you know?
It's a Chinese guy. I don't know. Yeah. I looked him up on Google and everything, couldn't find him at all. So when I moved to New York City, this is what I started doing. And I luckily got into an art gallery by, basically, I do a lot of demos as a painter because I think it's really informative to show people the process of painting and everything. And then it also sparks other conversations and dialogue about what I do with groups of people. And I've also learned from a lot of demos. When I was in high school, I went to a teen arts festival where they had a guy doing a portrait demo that like blew my mind. He had like this palette full of like a zillion colors, and his painting was amazing, and I just like was blown away. I'm like, I want to learn how to do this. It was like magic. And so that's kind of a reason. Now I do a lot of demos. I do a lot of stuff on YouTube that I film, but when I went to Syracuse University, and we had Bert Silverman come visit. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's a painter in New York, and he's kind of like an old guard of painters that have been painting all through their entire lives. They do illustration at certain times when they weren't really accepted. Him, Harvey Dinnerstein, Aaron Schickler, all these actually like New York Jewish painters that are just incredible, that kind of like all banded together to kind of get through the whole thing of galleries not really accepting their work so much as other artists. Anyway, so Bert came and gave me a demo, and I got to watch him, and then I asked him a question like, oh, where do you show in New York City, right? So he told me Gallery Hancock in Soho, because I knew I was going to be moving there like about 6-7 months. I moved right after graduation from college to New York, like just wanted to make it like sink or swim, you know? And I used to do illustration. I had done a few magazine covers at the time, and I used to do small paintings that were like maybe, I don't know, 8 by 10. I used to make them purposely so they would fit on the bed of a color scanner. So I could bring them to Kinko's or like copy centers and just whip off reproductions that were okay. I mean, they weren't like perfect and all. But I used to walk them all around the city, like to Random House, all the major publishers and stuff. And I used to get out in the subway also, since I didn't know the city, and I would just get lost. You know, I was like, I'm just gonna take 2-3 hours and just walk around these streets, because I was like blown away. You know, I was like the guy who was like staring up at like all the buildings and just like marveling at the architecture and everything. So I was walking down the street, and I had gotten out in Soho and walked around, and I noticed a banner for the Gallery Hancock, which was on Wooster Street in Soho at the time. And I was like, oh, Bert Silverman said he was going to show there. It was like a weird moment. And so I walked in. I looked all the top and bottom of the gallery. They had a basement space and they had an upstairs space, and they didn't have any of his paintings on view. So I went to their front desk, and there was like 4 or 5 people there that were all employees of the gallery and everything. And I was like, "Do you guys show Bert Silverman?" You know, he told me that he shows here. He's like, "Oh, he just started showing here like a few months ago." And we have a couple of his paintings in the back room, which is like an office type space. And they're like, "Oh, you can go check it out. You know, it's open. You know, go on back." So I walked into the back room, and there's like a big one there that I'm just like staring at, like amazed. And the director of the gallery walks in, and he asked if I was a student of Burton's. He's like, "Oh, are you a painter?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm an illustrator. You know, I'm not a painter. I don't know anything about that." And he goes, "Oh, well," I said that Bert had said that he had shown there, and that I was at a lecture of his at Syracuse for a demo. And he's like, "Oh, you're an artist then? Well, bring some of your paintings by. I'd love to see them sometime." I'm like, well, you know, actually I have some in my backpack. So I just got some color copies. So I had like 3 really crazy paintings. I had one of like a Buick, whatever, 1931 Buick, and one of a portrait. And I forget what the third one was, but they were just really disparate images that weren't a series of paintings. And I showed it to him, and he's like, "Well, the skill is actually really good on these, but I need a series of paintings to really, to start showing. And that's what you need as an artist, you know, you don't just need like a one-hit painting. You need like at least 10 to 15 like really awesome paintings in a series that shows consistency in your work. It shows that you're not just gonna like fade away after 3 months, you know, after you drop off. So your voice is really important in paintings. And so I told him, I'm a young kid, right, 22. Well, probably your age, like most of you guys are 22, right? So I was like, you know, I'll be back in a month. I told him I'll bring like 2 paintings back in a month and tell me what you think, you know, thinking that would be like amazing if he liked them or not. If he didn't, he would give me advice. You know, even if he like tore me to shreds, I would learn something. So I went home. And when I moved to New York, I was also a graphic designer. I'd gotten a job doing web design. And so I was working at an internet consulting agency doing graphic design and internet web design, which was amazing, great job, which filters into my backgrounds now when it comes to letter forms as well. And I don't think that was ever lost time at all, because I think that we are the sum of our experiences, right? So everything I've been through has made me unique in what I have to offer when it comes to painting. And so it's the same with everybody in this room. You know, if you're struggling really hard to be a figurative painter, you know, that's going to work into your work. And it's going to make you want it even more. So this was one of the first paintings I dropped off to him. And I was working right around the corner from this place in Union Square. I don't know if you guys have ever been to New York. But I was really fascinated with like broken signs and the texture of certain things. Like I love like the crosswalks for some reason in New York. And so the sign had been destroyed, the one-way sign had been bent by a truck. And so that kind of like was really intriguing for me. And I was trained as an illustrator, and so like kind of trying to do photorealism a little bit. So that was kind of what I was getting into. And these are acrylic actually on canvas, which is crazy. And then I would always get out of work early and I would walk from, it was in Union Square, and I'd walk straight down Broadway, all the way down to Canal and Broadway, and then get the train there. So this is another early piece. So these were the 2 pieces I brought him. Again, you can see where I'm really interested in the textures and the walk, don't walk signs. And really in the street art and graffiti also that was being played into the environment. So these I did in 1999, a while ago. But he saw these and he really liked them. He's like, let me show these to a few people and I'll get back to you. And then he sold them in 2 weeks, I think, both of them, which was amazing. And so they kind of took me on under their wing a little bit. I wasn't represented. I wasn't going to have a show like tomorrow, you know, all of a sudden like, you've made it. They basically just would take paintings from me every month or 2, and they would try to sell them. And I started doing pieces more like this. I was more interested in kind of lighting and how it affected things. So these are actually pretty big. This is pretty, well, I mean, it's slightly smaller than the size of the screen, I believe. These are some really early pieces. Again, really interested in design.
Did you say the size of the screen or the size of the
I'm
picture
sorry,
in the
sorry,
screen?
the image on the screen. Sorry.
Okay.
These are still acrylics?
These are oils. I moved into oils. So another piece, again, interested in the textures. So at this point, I was also kind of sick of doing these paintings because they had just turned into a technical exercise of just finding a photograph and then blowing it up big and then thinking about those angles. I wanted to be a figurative painter. For some reason, New York City's a very open culture. It's not a car culture. So everywhere you go, you're interacting with people. You know, you get on the subway, you're going someplace, you see tons of people, you know, and you stare at them for an hour on the train going someplace or whatever. I was going to work every day. And it just kind of fascinated me, so I started drawing them on the subway with I had a little moleskin that I would do stuff in. And it's like, I want to like learn how to do more figurative stuff. And so again, with the Ben Franklin quote, you know, without continued growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. You know, it also comes with that whole thing of like working really hard for something makes you mean more to you. So I went to school at the Art Students League, and this actually happened. I took, so after 9/11, the company I was working with, I had moved companies. I worked for 2 years doing the graphic design, and I'd done stuff for like Sony, Nike, I worked with the big clients, and it was great. I moved up from a graphic designer, like senior designer, into a creative director role for .com. And I was working there, it was for a music website, so it was like we did all indie webcasts from all over the country. We had put cameras in them, and we were like a cool website. You know, it was like fun to brand a project like that and be on a team that did that. But after 9/11, since we were based in Union Square, the company downsized from 60 people down to 6. So me and my buddies, we all lost our job. You know, I thought we were really good at what we did. Actually, they all stayed in the business and have their own companies now that make like tons of money. I think I went the wrong road. Did not choose wisely. So I decided to, I was given unemployment insurance because I guess because of 9/11, I had lost my job and had been laid off. And so I used that money to go back to school at the Art Students League. And I was like really poor at this moment. I was making like almost nothing. But I wanted to pull that into learning. And so the Art Students League is amazing. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It's an a la carte class type situation school. So it's very similar to the Scottsdale Artist School here, where you can take a class for a week, they do workshops, or you can take classes for a month long at a time. And it was only, when I was in school, it was only $170 to take a class for an entire month. You know, and you get the model 5 days a week for 3 hours for each day. The instructors come in twice a week, only for 3 hours. You only talk to them for maybe 30, 40 seconds because they're getting around to like 30 people in the class. But I started taking classes in the morning, afternoon, and if I could at night. So I was there for 6 to 9 hours, Monday through Friday, and drawing sometimes on the weekends too, because I really wanted to get good at the figure stuff. Because I was like, I have this gallery, I want to take advantage of it and give them the best work I can. I felt like I had lucked out, and I had this amazing chance that I wanted to really take advantage of. So this is where the bad art starts. Well, I guess it started back earlier, but these are some of my quick 20-minute studies that we would have in class. And I would always take my paintings and just flip them upside down and just paint over top of them. And then flip them again, paint on top of them. So some of the paintings had like 10 paintings underneath them. So it actually created a really nice texture. So most of these are figure studies and stuff. So I used to, there you can see like one guy's bald head coming out of this guy's chest. And so I guess I was smart and took some photographs of all these things. I actually thought I was better than I was. That's the thing. I used to think this was really good, and that's always played in the back of my head where I'm like, I remember when I thought I was good, and so I'm like, man, never do that again, Yeah, like this one is my friend Zach. He's like a techno musician guy. He has a crazy name, I forget what he goes by.
When was that one done?
This was at the League. This was a life study from the League. And there was this homeless guy that used to hang out in front of the subway at the League all the time, and I wanted to do a painting of him. Again, super early. This was like way out of my scope of what I could do it now, probably a lot better than I could back then. And just kind of blocking. This was one of my first oil paintings, actually, of this guy. I just like keep track of what my progress was, from like the blocking. Again, these are really bad. And in 2003, I actually won a grant to go study in Italy through one of the schools that I was studying at. It was awesome. The National Academy is a great place to study if you come to New York because it's built next to, it's right across from the Guggenheim. It's across from Central Park. And a lot of the people that take classes there, they aren't really professional artists, so they actually support the school. They're mostly hobbyists that live around the area, or people that are really serious that it's like a second career, they've retired and they want to kind of go back to learn how to life paint. And so they actually have a lot of money available for young artists that don't have a lot of money. And it's easy to get monitorships where you're the assistant for the teacher, and so I was able to do that. But they also have this grant every year that they gave to a painter and a sculptor, where you got to travel to Italy for 4 months. So it was amazing. So went off to Italy and was super stoked to just carry moleskin with me wherever I went, and did tons of studies of paintings, drawings, sculptures, landscape. I was just bonkers for drawing in these little moleskins, and I would write what I saw and everything, and the dates. This is there you go, Sander Barbieri, it says it on there. I used to know all these things by heart, I don't know why. This is Rio Maggiore, which is in Cinque Terre. It's a landscape. This is a Michelangelo. This is him as Nicodemus. This sculpture was supposed to top his tomb, actually. and they had there was a vein in the marble that he had hit by accident and broke off part of the leg. And so the Jesus part of the Pietà is really small compared to all the other figures. They think that it was in the basement of somewhere, and they think one of his students had taken it and practiced on it. Like practiced destroying it. Even worse. But it's in the Museo dell'Opera del Duomo in Florence. This is a horse that Da Vinci had worked on with Verrocchio. It's in Venice. This was the basis of the horse that he was creating for Milan, for the Sforza. I don't know if you guys know anything about that. This is a head study of a painting. I think this was in Siena. No, not Siena. Bologna, I believe. My screen's all distorted over here. But I was really interested in these very dramatic poses, portraits, and just really just open to learning and stuff. So this was on the street in front of the Pantheon in Rome. This is at the Doria Pamphili in Rome. This is Pope Innocent X that was painted by Velázquez, or Velázquez, as they say in his country. This is Titian, self-portrait of Titian.
How much time were you spending on these on average?
Usually like 30 minutes maybe, sometimes an hour, not even an hour, you know, they're really small. They're like little studies.
Yeah, just trying to get the gist of it and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, you know, it was really interesting. What I learned when I was there was really soak up the moment, live with a painting. You know, I would go through museums before without a sketchbook. How long do you look at a painting? Do you ever look for a painting longer than 5 minutes, 10 minutes if it's your favorite painting in the entire world? You know what I mean? And you hope there's a seat put in front of it by the museum people. You know? So I was able to, by really sitting in front of something for 30 minutes or an hour, you really soak it up. You know, you really you live with it. And I've been really studying stuff in that kind of form. And I have some later pieces I'll show you guys where I spent maybe 2 hours in front of pieces. And even going to, while I was on this trip, I was like, I'm going to be a landscape painter. So I bought a Pouchade box to go with me and carried this heavy Pouchade box, which is like it's like a little outdoor plein air painting box, and filled it with tons of paint. I was like, I'm going to take this wherever I go, and it was just the most unwieldy thing you've ever seen. And I fancied myself to be a landscape painter, and I just brought little pieces with me. And so this is in the CC. You know, doing this piece, it's not a very good landscape or whatever, but I remember what it felt like to be there. You know, to sit and paint this for an hour and a half. What the air smelled like, the wind felt like. I remember even like the dirt that I put the tripod in, you know what I mean? Like these little things that you just remember that are concrete in your head. And I think that for painting for me, that's carried on with all my painting. Like having someone sit for me, I can remember a lot about them. You know, a lot of times I almost interview the person that I'm painting. And so it's this idea of experiencing painting as opposed to just being there to make a pretty picture. You know, I really want the work that I do to be very personal. So these are records and documents of my trip. You know, it's like a visual diary. This is also in the CC. I think a CC was a little less unwieldy, because I think most of these little studies are from there. This is my inspiration wall when I got back. You know, I bought cards everywhere I went because they were cheaper than books. You know, and some of my books and everything. So I had this in my studio. There's like a Robert Henry. Yeah. Rembrandt. A lot of old stuff, you know, but you can't like live in the past. The idea is to take what you see from the past and move it forward, right? So what are we doing today, and how can you make this, the technical aspects of paintings that people fall in love with, that are really living and really make that relevant? I don't know. So this was the first painting I did when I got back. That was more of a serious piece. It's from my friend Sue, who I met in Italy. It was funny, we met at a pasta festival in San Lorenzo, you know, where in August everyone leaves Italy, you know, they go on vacation, and everyone had come back for this pasta festival. And she was touring Italy with her dad. And so she actually lived in Brooklyn. And she was like, hey, when you come back, why don't you like pose for me, it'd be awesome. So we did this quick study. I was so enamored with Italy, it was insane. I even used Italian titles, you know, and it was because my taste wasn't really, I was still trying to push it to be contemporary, but it wasn't quite. It was still Italian, still so overwhelmed by my experience there. Did another painting of her. And these are pretty super early figurative pieces for myself.
Are these from life?
Partially life and from photos. Yeah. And then I went back to the league, and we had Peter pose for me. And I was trying to give it implied meaning, you know, I'm Jewish heritage, ethnically, and so I wanted to do like a kind of a deeper type of piece. So that's a real downer. And then I started, the only models I really could get were models that were from the school, you know, it's kind of weird to go up to people and like, hey, you want a model for me on the subway? Everyone thinks you're trying to pick them up. Sometimes you are. So, this is Janelle in pose. And so, I'd done like 3 or 4 of these pieces that I was actually kind of confident in. And I brought them over to the gallery. I said, you know, I'm kind of done with doing these landscape paintings. I want to move into figurative. And these pieces are all life-size, so they were pretty substantial pieces. And I set up a meeting with the gallery, with the director and everything, and had brought them in. And he looked at them. He's like, these are so much better than your landscapes, you know. We're really glad that you brought these in because we were kind of tired of your landscapes. So, yes?
Does the Italian wording have a meaning for the painting?
Yeah, this is breathing in futures or something, blah, blah, blah. I forget. I used to really be really deep into the titles, and I'm not anymore. I'm just trying to finish a painting now. That's amazing. And rather than title it, I think everything should be untitled, actually, because I think that the meaning should be in just the work. But yeah, so I brought in these pieces, and then to the gallery, and they were like, we're going to actually really start to show these now. You know, these are actually pretty substantial, which was awesome. So the years of training at the league, this was 2004, I think, when I brought these in. I think I can read that. I think that might be it. I don't know what MMIV means. Yeah, 2004. Man, I was really old-fashioned. It's crazy. That's what you get. But I was also trying to push in my abstraction in this piece, you know? So you can see how the side piece is a trompe-l'oeil of a city street, a city wall. You guys see that? And it's not a triptych, it's not a diptych, it's actually all in one panel. So I actually painted it so it would look like there was a space in between the canvas and the actual piece. Now, these didn't really live in the same world, though. There was like, here's your figurative piece, here's your abstract piece, right? So they hadn't merged yet with me. So that was something I wanted to kind of figure out. So this is another piece I had done. Very closer to what I'm kind of doing now a little bit. Still kind of brown tones. You know, I'm still playing with the background textures are starting to come together a little bit. You know, I'm trying to loosen up actually when it came to backgrounds.
Had you been continuing to do the cityscapes then through the early 2000s for the gallery? Or?
No, I had stopped doing them work for about a year. Yeah. And they had moved actually to Chelsea at this time. They had moved 2001. They moved to Chelsea. It was funny. I'm like, why are you moving to Chelsea? There's no subways that go out there. Nobody's going to go there to see art. And they were one of 3 galleries that moved on to 25th Street. If you go to 25th Street now, there's like Marlboro's on their street right next door to them, and they have a beautiful storefront like space, so you don't have to go into a building. I don't know if anyone's been to New York and gone gallery hopping. But you have to go in the buildings and all the nooks and crannies and find galleries. But Gallery Hannock has a beautiful space that they've renovated. Yeah. So I had stopped giving them these, long story short. And this was one of the first pieces that I actually started really bringing a lot of the street art influences. It's a self-portrait that I had done at the Art Students League when I was there, and actually had won a red dot there, and the Art Students League had bought it, which is pretty incredible. Except now that they put it on view every now and then, and I'm really embarrassed by it, because I'm like, yeah, I can paint so much better now. You know? That's what this whole thing is about, is I guess, yeah, I want to go back and repaint everything that I did before, you know, because I understand so much more now. And at this time also I had to stop studying because my son was born. So this is Lucas, and this is a drawing of him at 3.5 months old. So, I was married at the time, and don't worry, I didn't give birth to him. And my wife and I had a child, and he's amazing. As soon as he was born, the gallery was like, we're gonna put your paintings up. You need to make money, you know, because you have a kid, you know. And so this capped off, I think, 5 years of studying at the League, pretty intensely. And I think when he was born, I had just won a scholarship. It's really funny to study at the League for free for a year. I won class free for a year, and I could barely use it because I was a stay-at-home dad then, you know. I was my ex-wife was an art teacher, so she worked on the Upper East Side, and so she would go to work and I would watch the kid, which was amazing. It's like the best job in the world. So he's the real art. But anyway, this is a graphite sketch. I did it life-size again, so I would always remember how big he was at that age. You know, and I really appreciate that now, because now he's 7, and he's like this little monster, in a good way. So I went back, this is 2006, I started, I really like that idea of these abstractions and these found abstractions in the city. So I was thinking about playing with design and abstractions. This is a completely painted panel that I wanted to be a trompe-l'oeil, full of the eye. You know, this idea of making it real and trying to mimic what we saw in the streets.
Now, all the texture in the plaster, is that painted or is that actual texture of paint?
That's painted. It's thick. Like my surfaces are very like pockmarked, worn, weathered, raised, and I use a palette knife with a lot of thick paint and pasto to kind of mimic what it actually was, the actual spot. You know, because I think that if the eye cues into seeing some texture, it's kind of coming off of this, it makes it look more real. You know, like it's actually what it is. Yeah, I don't paint on canvas at all, because the canvas, if I were to do a paint on canvas, you would see it as canvas, and it's like a tell. It's like letting the magic trick out. You know it's a painting then, so that you don't. So that idea of seeing it completely in the round and being from life or of a life, you know what I mean? It kind of flattens it.
So you paint on panels?
Yeah, these are on masonite panels. Yeah. Again, this is all completely painted. Really interested in that idea of archaeological digs and layers in the city and combining that. Here's another one. Again, breaking into a little bit of the letter forms that you would see in the city that are broken up. Another one. More layers on this one. This is my wall in my studio when I was starting to draw a lot. There was a start of the Lucas drawing in the middle. So in school we were doing a lot of figure drawings and stuff. This is some graphite work. I started teaching at this moment also to help pay the bills. So I got a job at the St. John the Divine, the cathedral. In the basement, or the crypt, they have a sculpture studio, which is huge. It's got like 20-foot high ceilings, and it's a sculpture studio for the sculpture of the actual Gothic building that is actually there. It's a huge cathedral. I think it's one of the biggest in the world, actually. So they had real skeletons and skulls and everything in the actual studio, because it had been around for a really long time, but they were really disheveled and destroyed. And as you can see, like even the teeth were all destroyed and beat up. But I would smuggle these out every now and then and put them in my backpack and take them to my studio at home and do studies from them. And I made an anatomy booklet, like almost like an atlas anatomy, where I took these drawings. I did like one for the features of the face, the eyes, nose, mouth, and the structure of, and overlaid them with Photoshop, where I overlaid the muscles over top of the bone, and did some renderings that way. And I did like a PDF booklet that I would hand out to the students, and I also sold online. I was thinking, and it actually did really well. I sold it online and people would buy it, and it was like an extra little bit of income coming in. Here's what I did for the eye. That's my eye. Huge. These are graphite drawings on Bristol.
Is it smooth or is it vellum Bristol?
Smooth plate. This is a work in progress. This is a very, very early piece that I actually started breaking apart and adding the textures and letter forms into the actual piece. And wow, it's really dirty and messy. I've only done one nude painting, actually, and this is a life-size piece of my friend Allie that posed. It's not sideways. I had to put it sideways on my easel because it was too big. So I was taking a lot of studio shots. There's a shot of the model with the painting. and she's an artist now in the city. So I had food poisoning once, and I did a painting of myself with food poisoning. This is the detail of the painting. And it's funny, the people who bought this painting, they put it in their dining room. It's really strange. But I had like a really great compliment from them. A lot of my friends were showing in this in the Beijing museum this last, I don't know, like a year or two ago, and I had no paintings available, and so they're like, "Can you borrow a painting back from a collector?" The Chinese museum would love to have this self-portrait of yours. So I'm like, awesome, let me contact the collector. And as a woman, I remember she was always trying to buy it, and she never had like the gallery was handling all the money and everything, and she couldn't afford to buy it. And then she finally did like payment plans, and he gave her a good deal and everything. But the best compliment I think I've ever gotten for a painting was that she said, if the painting is gone for 2 years, it was supposed to travel around China and everything, and I'm only alive for 10 years, the painting is going to be out of my life for 1/5 of my life. Or, is that what that is? Yeah. I was like, it's kind of depressing, but also like, wow, you really love the painting. You know, and that's where you want people to have paintings, you know. You don't, I mean, sure, to make a buck, you need to have them like match people's couches or whatever and such. I don't want to think about that ever. I want to do pieces that are so personal that someone really wants to get behind you as the artist. You know, if you think about a painting, it's, again, romantically, like if you're doing a painting, I tell my classes all now, I'm teaching life painting right now at the school in Scottsdale. This idea that every stroke I'm putting down is like a deliberate thought about what I'm seeing. And so these paintings are collections of my thoughts, you know, and that kind of has romance to me. It has a history, it has a reason to make that painting. Again, it's like a visual diary. I'm putting everything I can into this. I'm not in any way thinking, oh, that red backgrounds are in this year, you know what I mean? Or gray is the new black, you know? So, and I want to really have like an artist statement that's really no bullshit. You know, I want to make it so it is personal and there's reasons behind why I do everything. And really trying to show the human condition, you know, as authentically as possible. This again is my friend Peter. I had him back in the studio, and he had actually just survived having cancer. So I wanted to do a painting of him. That's him again. So this was the study for the painting, and I didn't like how the head was. I wanted to kind of like slightly raise him up a little bit, his chin. This is a piece that's in progress. So I had a babysitter that would come in like 2-3 nights a week or 2 or 3 days a week to help me out so I could actually paint a little bit and watch my son. And since she was there, she became a model for a lot of my paintings. You know. What's that?
Who was watching the kid?
Oh no, it'd be like when my wife and she'd just stay. Because she was only like 3 or 4 blocks away also in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, so it worked out. This is my messy studio, but my studio was so small I could only get, this is an 80 by 60 inch painting, but it was done in 3 pieces. Again, so it's a diptych, even though I couldn't get a panel that big into the space all at one time, so I had to do it piecemeal. And I just like, how big is my space? It was like half a room at that time, half like a 15 by 20 square foot room, half of that. It wasn't very big. It was in my little apartment in Brooklyn. So I wanted to do bigger paintings, because I think if you do big paintings that have multi-figures, you can really create this experience for the viewer. You know, I went to Paris and I saw the Raffle Medusa, right, by Jericho, and the painting is the size of a movie theater, like screen, you know, and you fall into that painting, and that realism of the painting really is striking. So this is my friend's wife who was able to pose for me. I just thought she had really beautiful skin. She's a Haitian girl, Chris. I started doing demos because I started teaching, so I was like, teaching is fun, you know, it's going to help pay my bills, so I don't have to do paintings I don't want to do, you know. At this time I was like, I don't want to do commissions ever again. I don't want anybody to come up to me and say the nose is off, or there's, like all through history people have been giving feedback about art where it's just not needed. Like there's a story about Michelangelo working on the David, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, where one of the town patrons had come in to visit him while he was working on the David, and he was working, he's like, yeah, there's something wrong with the nose up there. And Michelangelo's like, oh, let me fix that. So he actually grabbed some marble dust as he was going up the ladder, right? And he pretended to chisel. And he let go some of the marble dust as he did. And then he just pulled away and he's like, hey, how's it look now? And the guy was like, oh, it looks perfect. You know? So everyone's got to have a say. And I want to be the only one who has a say in what I do. You know? So this was one of the first demos I had done at the San Legundi Club. And I look a lot younger there. Should cut my hair. So I started teaching around the U.S. This is a school in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And just doing demos also helped me to get better. And teaching helped me become a way better artist because I was back in the shoes of people that didn't know how to paint or draw. And so I was going back to the fundamentals. And also just explaining why I paint and how I paint out loud. It's like when you read a written report out loud, you can kind of tell if it makes sense or not. It's the same as with painting. It's like these concepts I was doing, were vocalizing them, and they were actually, I could tell if they made sense. And I could also tell if the students were learning or not. And so I've been honing that kind of technique and how to get into someone else's shoes as they paint to kind of help them out. So it's been amazing. I should have known this, my friend Joe. That post for me. He had an art foundation. He was the head of Stone Quarry Art Foundation up near Syracuse. This is another piece that I've done actually about us going to war and, you know, everywhere. And this idea that Jen posed again for it, who is the babysitter, and just starting to encroach more of the abstraction into the piece. And then I started painting my aunt. I'm doing a big painting of her right now, and some drawings and stuff. And she's amazing. My dad had a pretty tough life. His dad left when he was 15, and he had to support him and his sister, who was 3 years younger. And so they have a lot of strength with each other, and they're really close ties. So she moved to Manhattan, so I was like, hey, I want to paint you like more and more so I can get to know you. And she's actually more of a grandmother to my son than my actual mom. This is Mariana. But again, playing with the texture of the background. She's from Venezuela. And her dad actually is a big collector at Marlboro. That also might have filtered into it. Yes?
Did you actually work with backgrounds that look like that?
You know what it is a lot of the backgrounds are all created within Photoshop. And also, I don't do any of that from site. And they change so much from the photos that I use. I have like a huge reference file of textures that I see in the city. Like I used to go on hunts, like with a camera, and just photograph every little piece of street art, like typography that I saw or calligraphy that I liked. And I used to do a lot of street art when I was a juvenile delinquent in Philadelphia when I was growing up.
David, I'm sorry. Do you mean you took pictures and then you photoshopped them and used them as a reference?
Yeah, I use them as reference to build out the backgrounds.
Do you use a background first or lights?
I combined the two. You said I had that one piece in progress where it was the background and the figure coming together. I want to have that tension of building them both together because you want to have them, it seem like a real environment that they're in. So, but they're all imagined, they're all composed. Again, this was all composed. And there's a self-portrait in there. If someone can find it, I will give them a DVD.
I see it.
Really?
What? Where
Is
is
it
it?
inner margin, like right to the?
Yep, you got it.
I
Yep.
got the
Where?
date.
Yep.
Below the frame.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, what happens if
His
it's
nose.
insane?
I don't have a pointer at all. I'm just showing you guys. This is great.
It's really cool. Right there.
Oh.
I thought I saw it.
I thought it was active.
Good eye.
Good egg.
So I have fun with these things. Now I'm actually starting to put my son's name in the paintings really like weirdly. You could flip the painting upside down, you might find it. This is a show I was in Madrid. Now I'm trying to branch out to worldwide, like, I guess markets or whatever. I'm trying to get into galleries that do a lot of art fairs so a lot of collectors can see the work. And I feel like Europe actually has more of a taste for the art that I do. I feel like a lot of markets now are very, I always call it like couch art kind of thing, like decorative in some respects. And it's hard for someone who paints very representationally to kind of make a jump into like a more serious contemporary type of space. but I'm talking to a gallery in Tel Aviv right now. This gallery in Spain is really nice. They're really good. I love Spain. Like, my favorite painter lives out there. This guy Antonio Lopez Garcia, who I've been out to meet a few times. I think I had him in the Slack exhibition. Here's a close-up of the piece. And that's Mariana's friend.
Excuse me, I have a technical question.
Yeah.
When you're doing these paintings, do you use more of like a direct method where you just try to match the color and the value right away, or are you relying heavily on glazing and overlapping?
Yeah, I don't
different
glaze.
layers?
I don't glaze at all. It's all very direct.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. This was my first show in New York at Gallery Hanak. You see the big walls. That painting is 63 by 96 inches or so.
Big space for New York.
Yeah, right. And they gave me a big wall. I did another show 2 years or 3 years later, and I tried to fill that wall again. It's fun. Here I'm working on that piece from Jen. She's sitting for me, I guess.
Do you find that when you went to university, art school there, and like in students' art league is like an atelier type thing,
Mm-hmm.
which did you get more out of?
Both.
Both?
The whole thing is, I have like, man, so I go to school for 4 years, and I graduated from Syracuse, it's paid lots of money to Syracuse to get a degree. But I learned so much there that makes me an artist. As opposed to go into the league, I learned a lot about being a technician, I guess. You know what I mean? And being able to see things. So those 4 years in college weren't wasted at all. Again, like I'm the sum of everything I've been through. The 2 years I had to work as a graphic designer, you know what I mean? It's only 2 years, you know, but it made me think about composition better and design things abstractly, and to really just figure out who I am. So my taste is changing as I'm working, you know, and my taste is continuing to be more refined. And a lot of it has to do with Syracuse. I took a lot of art history. I'm like 3 credits shy of a minor in it. You know, when I went to Italy, I was like engrossed with art history. I think that's really important. I love this room because there's like so many images here that I'm just like blown away. I'm looking at Caravaggio straight ahead. It's Bacchus, you know, at the top of the wall over there. It's yeah, there's Pope Innocent X right below it, directly below it. You know, that I showed you guys the drawing of. So everything is who you are. You know what I mean? That's what. If you want to make the most personal work, you know, there's people that want to make very impersonal work, and they want to make trendy work and stuff, and that's okay too. You know, that's something that interests them. Again, now I'm getting away from this. This was because, like, I don't know, I went to a pretty girl stage. I don't know why. That's ended, I think. Maybe. This is at the show. I just thought this was a cool shot, because I like the idea of silhouettes of all the people, and then you have the paintings. And Jen's in like every painting. I think actually at the time of the show, she had upset my wife at the time, something with the kid or something, and we fired her. And then she came to the show and was like in every painting. It's crazy. There's Mariana. Mariana actually is also a newscaster right now, I think, for Univision as well, because she's a Spanish speaker. She's from Venezuela. And I was explaining the painting. I was being interviewed with really short hair. That's my son. Awesome. At the opening. See, he got bigger. He's much bigger now. This is the piece that never sold that I showed you guys in the beginning. That was in the art fair. So that piece is 2009, and it still hasn't sold. It's been in like, so many collectors have brought it over to their house to see it, and just hasn't found a home yet. So it happens.
It's probably personal, you know, you're meant to have that.
Follow me around.
Yeah. So.
You know what it is? I'm totally cool with getting rid of artwork. If you're giving it away or not having it. Well, the idea is I always think of it as like I run an orphanage for painters, like for paintings. You know, I want to give them away to someone who. The thing is also I don't take good care of my art. Like for me, it's just it's a lot about the journey, about making a piece. Once it's done, it's done. You know, I kind of moved on. I'm really bad at photographing it and all this stuff and documenting it. But I'd rather have a collector who actually pays good money for it, because they're actually going to like take care of it, you know, and make sure it's not on the floor where I'm kicking it every day. Or you know, I brought a painting of Jace that I just did for this DVD documentary I filmed, and the corners are all destroyed and beat up and everything because I've been taking her with me around the world. She came with me to Brazil, and I left her there by accident. And this craziness. Carmen, and I sent this to a painting exhibition in Spain. I started going to Spain a lot. When I was in Portugal 2 years in a row, and I was like, oh, I haven't made it to Spain, so the second year I flew into Madrid first, and I had a very close friend in Madrid, and got to hang out with him and stuff, and Madrid's an amazing, cool town, and really great bars, and really great art scene, just with the people are really down to earth, and amazing. And then I took the train all the way down to Portugal again to teach. Anyways, there was a figurative show at this gallery there, and I entered it, and luckily a museum saw it in the show and they purchased it. So she's actually in Barcelona now, and she's unfinished actually. I wanted more time on it. But again, I really like this idea of, I think for myself, I don't feel like I have a lot of life experience yet. I've been traveling all around the world now, trying to get life experience, and I want to seek that in paintings and people that I paint. I want to paint people with that experience. And then eventually I think I'll be that type of person that has that experience. So I got to meet my hero, this guy Antonio Lopez Garcia. He's incredible. He's pointing at me saying, this guy's amazing. No.
You would never know the difference.
Yeah, I just made it up. Or he's like, this guy smells. Why'd you bring him to my studio? And I'm just like, I don't know Spanish, so I'm just like, uh-huh. So this is what he paints. This is the painting that launched 1,000 bathtub paintings, I call it, because I have so many friends that love Garcia so much that they've copied him and done paintings of women in bathtubs. That's me doing a demo in Portugal. That's my special medium that I use before I paint. This was at a Portuguese art club in Faro, Portugal, which is in the south of it's in the Algarve, which is in the southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula. This is when I did this study, and then I worked it up a little bit further and painted the same girl again, Laura. This was a color study. So this is only 6 by 9 inches, this piece. It's one that I just did as a color study for a finished painting that I never got around to. This is her sister who posed for me also when I was in Portugal. I came home and did a big painting of her based on photo reference and sketches. And this is 4 by 8 feet, this piece. It's in a museum in Connecticut. Again, trying to really bring that street art aspect. So this is very similar to that self-portrait I had way back when at the Art Scene City. An hour ago, I think I showed you guys that. And so everything started kind of meshing a little bit better. This is them together. They're sisters. Everyone always thinks that they're not. They're really interesting people because they're actually German. They lived in Portugal, and they moved there when they were 13 and had to learn Portuguese in high school, which is crazy. So they supported each other. So I started doing demos and filming them online, kind of a way to kind of get my name out there for teaching gigs and stuff. This is Henry, who I'd done the drawing of earlier. I showed you guys as a homeless guy. And he comes to the studio every now and then. I would just do paintings of him. And I thought this was a cool photo because you could really see how bad my drawing was or how good my drawing was in comparison. This is an iPhone sketch. So I'm a huge nerd into technical weird stuff, and so the iPad came out and the iPhone came out, and I thought it's such a great thing to show artwork on. Like buying those big portfolio cases with laminate sheets and getting reproductions that are big to fit them, and having to carry those was so annoying. So I started drawing on the iPhone, just on the subway, and this is Patrick who sat for me for this quick finger study. So this is actually on the iPhone. It's really small. Again, seeing it like this is pretty big. And I was using a technique that was very linear, because that's all I knew. And I was kind of scribbling in value. Then I got the iPad, and 3 or 4 months after it came out, and there was a program called Brushes, and I made a video that I put on YouTube that got some attention and stuff all over England and in the US, where I just painted them for 4 or 3 hours from life doing this video, and I videotaped it. I did a webcast while I actually did the video, which we had about 500 people from all over the place watch. And you guys they had to take the video down, but it had over 1 million hits in 3 or 4 months, which was pretty amazing. And I've been in newspapers in some language. I think it was in Malaysia. I was on the cover of the Sun, or this wasn't the cover, this was inside the Sun. On the iPadlo Picasso.
That's a great headline.
Yeah. I don't do really any digital painting now at all, but what I got the iPad for also to do these digital paintings was so I could bring it to museums again and do studies like I had done when I was in 2003 when I was an art student in Italy, you know. So this is a Jan Steen piece that's in Brussels that I got to do this little quick sketch of, which was so much fun. You can't really bring oil paints into a museum and work full color. So the iPad really brings it so you can bring a full set of paints in. And when you sit and think about a painting in color, you really look at it more so than if you're just doing a drawing. If you're just doing a drawing, you're just doing composition. You're not wrapping your head around like how green pulls into pink, or the flesh tone turns a certain way, or the movement of something. It's more compositionally if you're just doing graphite. So this was from 2010 when I brought it to Belgium when I was there. So this is a study, and I went to the Rijksmuseum on the weekends to visit Rembrandt, you know. And so this is a Rembrandt piece. This is a portrait of the sun, I think as, I forget who it was, St. John or something, or St. Francis maybe. This is another Rembrandt study. And I could actually study how the glazing was actually, and why the color interactions were vibrating off these paintings by really staring at it and looking at it. So that helped me when I went home, and that kind of stuck with me through osmosis or staring at it for a really long time. So I became a better painter by looking at these. It wasn't like I was doing these things to sell at all or anything, because you can't really sell iPad art unless you're David Hockney, unless you have a name already, you know. Just so I did a step-by-step of a piece. And this was my girlfriend at the time. I started dating shortly after I split. And she was like pretty much in all the other paintings because I was in love with her, you know. So at this time, iPad technology had caught up with us wanting to be painters, and they actually had painting programs that actually made it look like paint. You know, so I put the texture on the background just because I wanted to look like a canvas. So it was like antithesis to actually what I do in the studio. So I'm doing one at the Art Students League, kind of a little video. There's like the finished piece. This is Portuguese. This was the demo I did in Belgium when I was there. That's way hot. It's not supposed to do that with that red. I did it. Now I'm also trying to figure out how can art help people, because I've been super blessed to be able to do what I do. Be able to take advantage of. I make a really good living and stuff. I'm like, let's try to figure out ways that art can kind of move everything together. So this was a benefit for the Bowery mission that I did. Again, I had Henry pose for it, and that was a sketch that we sold for $1,600 for the Bowery mission, which is a homeless shelter. I just like this picture because I packed the room. That's awesome. I was like, this is like selling out Madison Square Garden. I have a simple life. So I started doing a lot more demos, you know, and this helped me also become a better painter. Went to Italy again.
Got the empty wine glass.
Yeah. It was cool. I basically revisited a lot of my old friends, you know, the paintings and drawings I had drawn already in 2003, almost exactly 10 years later. This is in Santa Maria Novella. It's the Trinità by Masaccio, the Trinity. This is a Verrocchio that's off of the Church of Orens Michele. It's also Da Vinci supposedly helped with it. I'm a huge Da Vinci fan. You know. This is a painting I did when I got back, again of the girlfriend. She's a singer, so I wanted to make it look like she was like almost kind of about to sing. I go and hang out with my buddies. These are my friends in San Francisco that had a model, so we all drew. That's the same girl again. This is Aubrey. I had a solo show in Manifest at the in Cincinnati, a drawing show. And this is the progression that I put together to kind of help people to understand how my process is, because the process is important as well, I think. And it starts out just with really simple block-in shapes. This is my mom. So again, I went back to really personal subjects. And Oh, that was a bad reproduction of my mom, actually. I had another solo show in 2012, and there's a big painting on the wall. That's an 8 by 10 foot painting. All about my relationship with that girl after we broke up. So everything is personal, right? She lived on the West Coast, and my mom and dad. This is the opening. So good. There's the idea of scale, again, to see me working on the painting. Again, really figuring out how these shapes and designs and everything to kind of work in with the figure and develop them. That's the portrait of my father, the full painting. Then I met Jace, and she's the quirkiest, craziest person I've ever met, and I just love her. And so I started doing paintings of her, and these are quick, like, this is maybe a 3-4 hour sketch of her, trying on things. And I filmed a documentary on painting her, and got into her life and stuff. And it's really cool. Now I feel like I want to be like a filmmaker now, because we got the DVD I made is, we follow her life and we interview her and we intersperse it with the technical aspects of painting as well. It's like 7 hours long, and it's been a lot of fun. So you can kind of see like my painting on the right and her on the left, and then the sketch, and then the actual painting, which I brought. As you can see, like, reproductions really don't do much. I think when you can see something in real life, you get more of a sense of it. You can see the texture and stuff in the backgrounds. This is the full painting of my mom, actually. This is, I think, a more finished photograph. What does the text mean? Right? Is that what you guys were thinking? It's a letter to her. She hates it when I paint her. You know, she absolutely loathes it. Got in big fights over it, actually. And so I was like, I'm going to do this painting of her. It's life size. Basically, I wanted something to be cryptic in it. I wanted it to be readable, though. If you find out what it meant, you could, if you search far enough for it, you would find out what the Hebrew meant. And again, going back to my ethnic Judaism, you know, and so basically it's a letter to her. It basically says, "Dear Mom, I'm doing this painting so I can spend time with you." You know, they live in Florida. I don't see them that much, maybe once a year, if that. She's discovered that Facebook is a replacement for phone calls. It isn't, you know. So you can sleep. And I'm like, no, I want that like 6 a.m. call. You know, I was waiting for it. I was up, ready to go. You know, it's funny. But yeah, it's basically I'm doing this painting so that I can contemplate our life together, my earliest memories of my childhood and stuff. And it's really amazing to paint your mom's hands, at least for me. You know, as a kid, it's like what held you. It's what you're seeing because you're on that level with your hands. And so there's like an unconscious or subconscious kind of bond to seeing something again as an adult that is just ingrained in us. So there's a close-up, a better color, I think, of the other than the other one. The other one snuck into the slide presentation. This is my friend Audrey that posed for me.
A lot of closed eyes.
Yeah? Maybe. I can't paint eyes well.
That's what I was thinking.
Audrey starts at the art school.
Yeah. We became pretty good friends. This is a current drawing I just finished like a couple weeks ago of my aunt again, and this is on Mylar, which is like a different surface for me. It's really cool. It has like a luminosity to the surface because the light can pass through it, which is really nice. So it has an ethereal kind of quality and a softness that I love. This is a sketch study for another painting I'm going to do, probably of Audrey, with her eyes open. Like that, a little bit more confidence. You know, I tend to make people really dour and thoughtful. You know, but I want them to be confident. This was a demo I did at the Art Students League in New York for a class that I taught. This is like a 4-day, 3-hour-a-day drawing demo. Yeah, that's, I think, a bad photograph of it. I gotta get a better photo. My friend Logan has a gallery out in LA, and LA loves skulls for some reason. It's like part of the art culture. We're cool. So he was like, "Do you want to be in the show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it'd be awesome." I just set up a skull that I had, not a real one. I had to give those skulls back when I wasn't working at the cathedral. And so I had it's a bone clone skull that's pretty realistic actually, and I just basically took a piece of foam core and cut a hole in it and stuck the skull in it and then lit it from above to get this. But this is kind of a direction I think I might be moving towards, I'm not sure, is I wanted to overlay my backgrounds into the figures so that the letter forms are going to start overlaying some of the textures of the faces. The only problem with that I feel is it might be gimmicky for me because I'm so much about the person that once I start overlaying text or stuff that doesn't have much to do with them in a lot of respects, it's going to take away from who they are and having them communicate. And so I'm like at a conflict right now within the painting. It's okay to do it for a skull because it doesn't have, it's not going to have the connection that a person's going to have. This is the demo I just did 2 days ago at Scottsdale Art School, so I thought I'd end with this.
Nice.
So this is a 3-hour or 3-hour day drawing sketch. And I'm painting her right now. It's Vanessa. I think she poses here.
Yeah.
I'll show you guys, so I figured that. Good. And so rules for life, right? Everyone wants rules for life because everyone needs rules. So do more than you're asked to do. I was lucky with the whole gallery thing to take advantage of any luck you have. Try new things so you're constantly evolving. Teach others what you know. Make your work into play. Like I don't work at all. I sit in my studio and I have painter's block all the time. And it's not from not having enough, not knowing what to paint, it's because I have too much in my head I want to paint. Which to do first. And so it makes life really exciting and fun. I take a lot of breaks, I travel a lot. Work when others are resting. You want to be, I think I don't do that anymore. Anyway, always be creating, make your own inspiration and love what you do or just don't do it. You're not gonna do anything, you're not gonna make something really well if you don't love what you do. And that's what I think of talent also, is talent really is just love. If you love something, you're gonna do it more than anybody else is gonna do it, right? And by having that dedication to it, you're bound to get better. You're bound to find the sources of inspiration that you need to create your work. So I'll end on that. Any questions at all? I'll open it up for questions now. Thank you very much.
Does that mean no questions?
Oh, no, okay, yeah,
No.
questions. Shoot.
Yeah, I mean, can I go into some technical things?
Sure.
I mean, is that okay? I know you're tired.
Oh, no, I'm fine. If I can help you. I like the technical stuff through demonstration, though, more so than
Well,
like...
it's not kind of like that technical type of thing.
Okay.
I noticed you paint on aluminum panel.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you prepare the panel, and how are you using the aluminum itself in your painting?
Okay, so I use a Dibond panel, which is
Dibond?
Dibond, D-I-B-O-N-D. I've had this question a lot. No, what it is, it's an aluminum substrate that is, it's aluminum on two sides, and then the core of the panel is plastic. It's insanely archival material. They use it for signs. Like I was just in Scottsdale yesterday and I saw a sign that was made out of the same stuff I paint on. It can handle the elements. It doesn't warp at large sizes. The 8 by 10 foot painting I had in there was made of 3 of those panels. You don't have to put a backing on it, but I put a backing on it so I can frame it. I do floater frames, so I have it suspended in space. All you got to do is you just put alcohol on it to kind of clean off any grease at all, and then you sand it.
Okay.
Just to open up the tooth because it's pretty slick, and then you just what?
Okay, so you're not letting the aluminum come through in the painting at all. It's not.
No. It's not a. I just use gray gesso. I paint into a neutral base, like a gray.
Yeah, because I noticed a lot of your backgrounds, they seem to speak of aluminum or
They
the
do.
grayed down colors. So I thought maybe it was.
Okay. No, I mean I'm always trying to push. I'm always trying to push luminosity in paintings. I didn't have a picture of my newest. I'm working on a piece. Oh, that's me. Scratched my head. The stuff I'm trying to do right now is actually I'm working on acrylic, frosted acrylic panels, which are translucent. And I have all these ideas to really push that further. I was actually that involve TV sets, and it's just really weird.
What grit do you sand it with?
240.
Just curious.
I want it smooth, so usually it's like a metal sandpaper because it's aluminum. Just you want to open up the grain. the grain, create grain actually, so there's adhesion.
Did you study with Tony Ryder?
Mm-mm. No.
I mean, don't you guys hang out together, like Gavin?
I think he's in Santa Fe. I think I had a beer with him once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone else, question? Now's your chance, guys.
Am I the only one?
Yeah, so I noticed because you began art school really young, or not really young, but you went to Syracuse for art, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like you've continued going to school, and then when you got out, you taught, and that's like you're learning what you're doing because you're like rehashing all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like, a lot of us are in a community college, or like going to the college in a community setting, and going to art school is like daunting and or expensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, how much do you think that an artist can achieve by just self-direction?
I think a lot actually today. I think maybe less before. I think with the invent of the internet, with Facebook, I mean, you can see what, I love it because I can see what my friends are working on. And you think we hang out with all these guys because I'm friends with all these guys on Facebook, and there's so much you can glean from that. But even taking, like, again, I like schools like Scottsdale Artist School. There's opportunities there for scholarships, you know what I mean, that you can go to school for a week, you know what I mean, for free. You know, granted you have to take off from your job and everything. It is a commitment to do it, but then they also bring in so many different instructors all the time. And they have open studio sessions. I think $7 for an open session for 3 hours. That's on North Scottsdale.
On Marshall Way.
Right down the street.
I don't know exactly the location. I don't have a car here actually. Everyone's like been shoveling me around. We're going to Casey Moore's after. Or another good bar. I was there last night. I'm sweating green beer. Yeah, no, I want to answer your question really seriously. I think you can do it. I think it takes, anything is, when I was in high school, I remember being like, oh, I'm going to choose a college and that's going to change the direction of my life forever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to have this instructor or this, or I'm going to meet cool people here or not here. And it was like, it stressed me out. It was weird. And then, but what I've discovered is that everything's on you, right? So if you go to a school that has no technical whatever stuff, but you're thirsty for that, you find ways to get it. Or you find that one instructor at the school that you can really, that they probably want you to go under their wing or something. And I think that I'm really amazed at the environment that this whole area has for the arts when it comes to technical stuff and also contemporary stuff. So this is a very nurturing environment to be a self-sustaining art student in. You know, there's resources here. You know, not a lot of schools have that. So I hope that answered your question. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you going to be coming back to the Scottsdale next year, Scottsdale Artist School next year?
Maybe. I don't know yet. Because I want to take some time off from traveling. Like, I'm going to
get into your class.
Yikes. Sorry. No, I'm traveling a lot this year. I'm like going to Ireland. I'm going to Israel. I'm going to Arkansas finally. I haven't been back since I was born.
Cool.
And a friend of mine set up an art school there. And he's like, will you come do a demo? And I'm like, yeah, that'll rock.
Does your wife not like to model for you?
Oh, no, I'm not married anymore. We split up about 3 years ago. Yeah. But like, we have a really great relationship still though. Like, I see my kid every day, because I'm still kind of a stay-at-home dad. Like, I take him to school every morning. He goes to school, and then he's done school at 3 o'clock. I pick him up from school every day. And I have him actually more when he's awake than she does. Yeah.
So when you travel doing demos, is he home and you're gone?
Right now, they're on a cruise.
Oh.
They're in like, I think they're probably in Puerto Rico by now, which is cool. Yes?
You talked some about your periods of self-study. When you look back on it, what were some of the times that were most important to you? You talked about going to museums and doing some drawing there, and also the skulls that you used at that one location. How do you look at it now? What were some of the approaches that worked well for you in self-study?
I mean, self-study it's well, like the museum visits were insanely helpful. You know, just drawing every day, drawing on the subway, drawing, like always having a sketchbook with me, a watercolor pad. Yeah, it's funny. I used to commute every day when I had a job. I used to commute an hour in and an hour out, and I would use that time to like either read a ton on the subway or draw people on the subway, or do. I even brought watercolors. I used to do I took like a pencil kit that I bought, like a Faber-Castell pencil kit, and made it into a palette, you know, so I could carry it on the subway, so it was small, and it was like really kind of trying to push ways that I could be more mobile, and that was insanely helpful. I started writing everything I was going through at the time. I kept moleskins that were like just all words and some drawings and everything, and that was just more introspective, thinking about what I'm trying to do, and like steps in the career. How can I actually like make this sustainable? And yeah, I don't know. Again, I guess it's all on you. I don't know if that answers the question correctly. It's different for everybody. I wish I had the answer for like everybody. You know what I mean? Because I mean, yeah.
You be God.
I just want to be helpful. I mean, it'd be cool.
Why do you like incorporating the urban feel into all of your paintings?
How do I?
You usually put like a graffiti type feel, stuff
Yeah,
that
yeah.
seems really detached from the background.
Oh, with the figures?
Mm-hmm.
You know what it is? It's like the environment I live in, and a lot of people I'm painting, when I'm painting people in the city, they all live in that environment. So it's kind of interesting, and like the design elements, I really want to make everything fit together. And I don't know, I used to do a lot of street art and stuff when I was a kid, so it kind of filtered also into what I do, and also my interest in typography and stuff like that. So, yes.
What advice would you give to someone who's super interested in a lot of different kinds of art, but really wants to make it as a professional artist?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Would you say like really focus in on something specific, like a gallery,
Yeah.
like something you could put in a gallery show?
Well, that's the answer right there. I mean, when I moved to New York, again, like my head was in the clouds, and I would see like the sun rising over a building at like dusk, and I was like, oh, I want to paint that. Or I want to go paint the Italian landscape, or I want to paint this old person feeding birds, or, you know, it was just like, it was sensory overload. It was like a content-rich environment that I was in, and the only way I could actually, I had to focus on one thing, you know, and try to get really good at that one thing, unfortunately, you know, and then kind of branch out from there. And so I focused on doing people, you know, so that was really beneficial. So I would say, again, like what you just said, you know, focus on one thing. Don't think about it as doing it for a gallery, though. I think the farther you put that out of your mind, and granted, that's what we all want. You know what I mean? If you see yourself in like 20 years, where do you want to be in a gallery exhibiting such and such and everything? But a lot of times, galleries will compromise what you have to say, and if you come at it with that perspective right away, then it's already going to be compromised. Yes.
So for you, you've kind of reached a pretty ample reputation at a fairly young age for most artists. What do you feel was your most beneficial thing that you've done, or things that you've done as a whole, for that matter, that have helped you get to that point right now so quickly?
Like taking advantage of the luck that I had. You know, New York City is a pretty cool environment. I was lucky enough to get my stuff into the gallery just by taking advantage of something that was like really a thread, you know, that you want to really like make it more substantial. I think that, and also the studying, really helped me to kind of get my voice out there. You know, I think that it's hard to get your voice out, honestly, if you don't know how to paint. It's almost like a musician that doesn't know how to play like simple chords. How are they going to? I guess they turn into the Sex Pistols. But you know, you figure out a way. You know what I mean? Then there's learning on the job. But I think it has to do with. Yeah, I think that was really beneficial. I had like all these ideas for paintings, and I wanted to try to make them the best I could. I don't know. I'm very holistic with this. I don't think there was like one moment. It's just been a series of like, it's been snowballing, you know. And I take advantage of social media and stuff like that, and try to put out pieces so that people can see them, you know, and do that kind of thing, as well as the instruction stuff. But I'm going to kind of be dialing back the instruction stuff, because I'm going to go back to what made it so I could do the instruction stuff, the artwork, you know, and really make the art even better than I can do it right now. Like, I'm really like want to push myself, and it's yeah, I mean, it's like an OCD, but I'm never happy with anything I do. You know, I can always push it better.
Stay an artist.
How's it going?
Oh, all right. When you were in Italy or when you go to the museums and you're looking at the old master studies, are there specific things you want to analyze at certain points, or do you go and like look at, I want to do a Rembrandt lighting or like the drawing of like a Caravaggio, or do you like, or you just kind of look at it as a whole and you just kind of absorb all of it?
You know, it's like, it's weird. It's I don't want to ever copy anybody. You know, like I wouldn't say I want to make a painting like a Rembrandt exactly. You know, but with like my friend as the model. I think when I go in there, I go into the museum to solve problems in my own work. You know, like I'm having a hard time with this transition or something, like how did this guy do it? Or sometimes just go in there, like, I remember when I was like 14 or 15 and just getting into art, you know, and I grew up outside Philly, and so I go to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and I was wowed by paintings just because they were beautiful in color and like Soutine and Cezanne and all these artists that have nothing to do with what I do, you know, Franz Klein, Rothko, although my backgrounds are very similar to these guys, like Rauschenberg, the whole idea of layering images. Part of me is like split. I love abstract expressionists, like New York School stuff. You know, I love de Kooning. And sometimes I'm in a mood, I go in and I'm like, I want to figure out how to do a nose. How did Caravaggio do a nose? Or how do they do this or that? But then a lot of times I want to just be like that 14-year-old kid again that walks in and is just wowed by a painting. You know, sometimes our brain of technical knowledge gets in the way of that. You know, so it's kind of limiting, I think, if you get into representational work too far. You know, and then you're like, it's bad if it's not done exact, you know, and accurately. And that's not true at all, you know, because art can have an ephemeral thing that's beyond the physical of what we want it to be and what's represented in the piece. Describe some weird words that don't make sense. Just combined a lot of weird stuff. Multi-syllables. Did you guys get all that? I didn't.
I noticed you put up a lot of quotes from authors, and I've also noticed on your Facebook that you post what you're reading or quote. So how much time do you spend reading?
Oh, that's the best time. That's like night, you know, or before I go to bed. It's like you stick the book under your pillow, you know, for osmosis.
And what do you look for when you're reading?
What's that?
What do you look for to read? How do you decide what to read?
How I decide what to read? I don't know. I really love poetry. I don't know why I'm getting into a lot of stuff like that. Like Yeats is like one of my favorites. You know, it's just it's a something. Okay, so like it's visual for me, and the aspect that like a sentence has a purpose, right? To communicate. But then the poetry aspect is kind of like, let's take this and make it ephemeral, you know what I mean, or something that you can kind of feel an emotion. That's what painting is kind of like, you know, I'm doing something literal, but I want it to have that kind of emotion, that otherworldliness, that kind of uniqueness to it. So that's, I don't know, maybe that's why I read it. I don't know, I just really enjoy it. I love literature and stuff, and yeah. But now when I paint, I actually listen to a lot of books on tape on every subject and a lot of debates and stuff. It's great I've read all the masterworks. It's yeah, and I'm in my studio like all the time, so it's like I devour content, you know, which I think makes me smart, I guess. Yes.
So on the comment you just made, I was having a conversation with another one of my instructors, but for you, how much time do you spend inside the studio opposed to outside doing publicity and other things like that?
Yeah, I don't really do any publicity type stuff. I guess the teaching is kind of publicity, whatever. I mean, I post a lot on Facebook of what I'm working on, and I've made it almost like just a part of my day. You know what I mean? Or if I have something cool to show, I want to show it. And I think that kind of builds momentum, you know, and a lot of it, if it's good enough, then it gets more likes, or and then it's like whatever, more accepted. And Instagram, and it's super easy to do Facebook and Instagram and Twitter because they're all kind of linked. You know, I post on Instagram, it goes on Facebook, you know, stuff like that. Or like I post a lot of pictures of my kid and stuff like that, just goofy stuff for like my friends, you know. So I almost think about anybody on my Facebook is a real friend, you know, in a lot of respects. So, and I'm just amazed that everyone's interested in like that stuff.
So you find yourself spending a lot more time in the studio than outside of the studio?
Yeah. I mean, when I'm outside the studio is when I'm traveling. And so like, last year I was traveling a lot. I was in Italy and for a whole month, you know, but I was taking landscape painting classes because I was like, I want to get better at landscape. So I studied with Israel Hirschberg, who's an amazing landscape painter. Yes.
Dave, for the larger pieces, do you depend on projection at all, or just drawing skills?
Just drawing skills. Yeah, I don't project at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I wanna get better at drawing, you know, and that's really, really key. And that's why I have no problem. I use a lot of photography for my paintings, but I've studied so much from life and painting from life that I understand how photography fails. But I also know how photography is good. You know, photography means I can have someone sit for me forever. You know what I mean? But I'm trying to learn right now how to become a better photographer so that I get reference shots that are better to paint from, that have the information that I see when I paint from life. I think that's really, really important. So I'm using like strobe lights. I have friends that are photographers that I hit up for information all the time. I actually still don't really know what the numbers mean on the dial. I just know like a 20 and 25 works with my strobe light every now and then. And then I can adjust it. I can adjust the everything in Photoshop to get better reference. You know, reference is really key for what I do. Having a person sit is the best. A facsimile of them sitting as in a photograph is okay. Yeah. So.
Guys, well, let's do maybe one more question, and then we'll give David a break. Anybody have a last question?
Okay.
Are there any other artists right now that are really just blowing your mind as far as painting goes?
Yeah, a million. I mean, this is such a humbling job. It's really crazy. I see artists all the time like think they're rock stars and whatever, and I'm like, how? Like this guy is like my friend Nicolas Uribe. He's a Colombian artist. Just blows my mind. Everything he posts. My friend Coro Kaufman. He's like a concept art designer. He's not even a full painter. You know, like painter, like showing
like
in galleries.
Games and movies.
Yeah, but when he does a painting, it's insane. It's like the best. You know what I mean? And I have other friends like technically, like there's a difference. Like some artists I look at for being artists. You know, they have something to say. There's a reason why they paint. And then there's other artists like for technical aspects that I find what they paint really vapid and whatever and kind of nah. But how they paint it is like face melting. Yeah.
How did you decide what to charge at that first gallery?
Well, that was the last question, but I'll answer this. I don't care. If you guys have more questions, I'm cool. I'm having fun. It's weird. You're either going to overvalue yourself or undervalue yourself based on your circumstances. So a couple of those early landscape paintings, the gallery had given back to me. And I remember when I was in school and I couldn't pay my rent. And there was a guy that was really wealthy that was in the class I was in, because it was a school that was up on the Upper East Side. And he offered me, the gallery said they put a price like $6,000 on the piece. And he came and he's like, well, I want to buy one, I want to help you out, kid. I'll give you $1,000 for it. I'm like, okay, you're an asshole, but okay. You know, so I had to do it because I had no money, you know, and that anything I could do to scrape a living painting. At one point I was like, I wrote in my easel, I was like, I make more money working as a part-time at McDonald's than I do as a painter, because I was so frustrated, absolutely insanely frustrated. And then I had a kid coming on the way, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? And anything that's a block for me, I basically put it behind me and make it push me. Instead of conceptually thinking of it as something I can't get through, I put it behind me and have it push me. So I work in spite of everything. You know what I mean? I think my dad for that, but I'm not going to go into my subjects. Yeah. But so I got your question. You can put your hand down. I'll get you. Don't worry. But the idea about now, I make a decent living. You know what I mean? That same painting, I would have been like, no, you can't afford that painting. You sold your company for $100 million. Well, that's $101 million. You know what I mean? Just. Yeah. Yes.
Who are some of your favorite artists within your own medium, like other figurative artists?
Yeah, Nicholas is amazing. Jerome Whitkin, I don't know if you guys know him. He's incredible. I studied with him at Syracuse. He was I did a lot of illustration classes, but he was one of the painters that I studied with. And he's a very weird guy. Yeah, I mean, who else for figurative stuff? Wow. I always get put on the spot. I mean, Andrew Wyeth is amazing. You know, but he passed away. But I love his honesty with his paintings. Bo Bartlett is incredible. Vincent Desiderio is amazing also. He shows at Marlboro. Yeah, maybe those guys right now. It always changes and evolves. So, Yes.
Who was the Spanish painter you?
Antonio Lopez Garcia. Yeah, he's amazing. He's absolutely incredible. He'll take 10 years on a painting. You know, and that's what I want for my career. That honesty that he has in his work and the work ethic to want to get it right. You know, there's a philosophy, I think it's, I always say this, the brushstroke lasts longer than the hand that made it. And so if it takes you an extra year to do a painting, if it's going to make that painting better, you should take that year and make that painting better. You know, because this is like, other than like our children and how we treat people and that kind of our like ripple effect through life, that's our legacy. You know what I mean? Okay. And we're done.
All right, thank you so much for coming.